So hopefully this will be my permanent location. Even if
You're gonna need a light. It's a little dark. It
oh,
really is like
darn,
dungeony in there.
I am a silverfish now. Earwig. I live in the cellar. Hello, friends and fiends. Welcome to Bugs Need Heroes, a podcast where an artist and an entomologist team up to illustrate the inspiring abilities of insects by creating a bug-themed superhero. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Kelly.
Before we get started creating this bug-inspired hero, what's bugging you, Kelly?
I know I always see no complaints. I have no complaints. Amanda, life is good. What can I say?
Oh, you're so optimistic, so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Well, the weather is great right now. Right now it's what are we in April? And it was like 80 degrees the other day. So been spending a lot of time outdoors, bike riding, hiking, the usual.
Coming out of your sad era into the sun now. I'll tell you what's bugging me. This is slightly bug themed, so I felt like it was appropriate. When someone sings the song, there's two versions I've heard. The ants go marching one by one. And alternatively, there's the bees go buzzing one by one. So pick whichever bug you prefer. When they say 4x4, are you imagining the bugs all in one line or the bugs in a square that's 4x4?
It's not that a question I was expecting you to ask me this morning, but
that's what I like to keep it cray.
In a line. I was picturing in a line.
It's always shown as a line. It's a line of ants. It's a line of bees. Every children's cartoon shows, but the wording is
a square.
No, I'm also picturing a line, but the wording is very clear that it's 4x4, which is clearly a square. Derek argues that when it's ants, it's military action, and so it's clearly a little like centurions going forth. But bees don't go like that, do they?
No. To my
I'm just saying,
bees don't do that.
You have been fooled by children's cartoons this whole time. They are not bug accurate.
If I've learned anything from doing the podcast, it's that cartoons are wrong. Very wrong.
The greatest heartbreak of all on this podcast.
But
so we have a. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, you go right ahead.
I was just gonna dive into the episode because we have a guest. I'm not trying to waste her time with my nonsense. So we have our second bug hero brought onto the podcast as the hero themselves. If you'd like to introduce yourself, please do so now.
Sure. My name is Kaitlyn O'Donnell, and I'm an entomologist. I live in Massachusetts. Right now, I work with mosquitoes, and that's how I met Kelly. But today I'm going to talk about a different insect that I did my master's research on. It's the winter moth.
I'm very excited. Very cool.
You met Kelly in the shadow of Mosquito herself.
Yes, that's very true.
Looming behind you.
We love Mosquito, and Amanda has plans to draw her properly, and
I do plan to draw her.
Oh, I can't wait to see it.
So tell us about the winter moth.
Yeah, well, I did my master's research on it, and I went to school in Maine, and it is a very cold hardy insect, which you have to be if you live in Maine. It was an introduced insect, so an invasive species. And I've been kind of thinking about how to frame it, as hero or villain. I know you've kind of discussed insects in both sort of ways before, but it is just a really fascinating insect. On the surface, it looks kind of boring and drab. The adults are just little brown moths, and the larvae are little green inchworms. They're very small, and you wouldn't normally notice them, but they just have so many really fascinating things about them.
Where do they come from originally?
They're from Europe, so another cold region. They are all across the UK, through Germany. They're in Norway, all across Europe.
So for your neck of the woods, Kelly, we joke often that Kelly is just Scandinavian directly, straight off the Viking boat with her beautiful blonde hair.
Yes. Made of northern folk. But yeah, that's a pretty cold part of Europe for an
Yeah,
insect to be.
and they did really cause a big problem when they were introduced in North America, which is kind of interesting because usually you're thinking about the big invasive pests that are coming from other areas like Asia. Those are the ones that you hear about all the time. But
Right.
this one is from Europe, so I thought it was kind of interesting that,
Well, what kind of how is it a pest? In what way?
Yeah. Well, it is a huge defoliator of a wide range of hosts. It has its favorites, but it will eat pretty much anything in sight. And when it's at really big outbreak levels, high numbers in the environment, it will be feeding on anything. I would see them on evergreen trees, which is really unusual for
Hmm.
a lepidopteran pest. Anything that it lands on, it will eat. And when the levels were really high in the spring of 2013 and 2014, you could not see a single leaf on a tree in the area where the outbreak was really high. They had completely stripped every tree of leaves. There were huge
Wow.
oak trees where really the only leaves you would see was at the very, very top of these tall trees, because the caterpillars couldn't make it up that high. It was, I think 2013 was the biggest year, and it was over 4,000 acres that were pretty much completely defoliated in coastal Maine.
Holy
So it
cow.
was, yeah, pretty impressive to see.
So you see a beautiful green tree, you walk up to it, turns out all the green on it is just
Yes,
caterpillars.
our
Oh
caterpillars. Yeah,
no.
yeah.
That's
And
horrifying.
they would just get everywhere. They were, falling from the canopy in
Oh my
curtains
god.
and
So you're
covering
getting covered
people's.
in them.
Yes, and I have a funny story to share actually. Because I would be out in the field doing all my field work in the spring when caterpillars are everywhere. And it's this little cute, beautiful coastal community in Maine. And there was this little local shop where I'd buy a couple groceries, and they kind of worked on like you could have a running tab there. It's that kind of place.
Oh, nice.
And I walk up to the counter, and I think I was buying a couple tomatoes, and I go to pay for the tomatoes, and two caterpillars fall out of my sleeve onto the counter while I'm trying to pay, and I'm like, "Oh, excuse me," and wipe them away. They just were everywhere.
So you're like Oogie Boogie and Nightmare Before Christmas, just
Yeah.
dropping bugs everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Horrifying.
I don't think I've ever been around an infestation of anything quite that crazy. Maybe like the brood X emergence a
Yeah.
few years ago. But oh my god. So these little caterpillars are just inchworms?
Yes, yeah. So they're in the family Geometridae, which are
Oh,
kind of commonly called loopers or inchworms. So they really are the classic. They're green as caterpillars, and yes, they inch along.
mm,
They are incredibly tiny when they emerge. They go through 5 instars. I know you've talked about instars before with other
mhm.
insects. And then so they go through a really large range of growth. By the time they're at their 5th instar, they are kind of, compared to what they were as the first instar, pretty chunky green caterpillars. Nothing like a, tomato hornworm or anything. They're
Oh,
still
okay.
a
They're
small,
still pretty
small
small.
inchworm, but yeah, probably, an inch and a half long or so.
It's still a pretty good size for
Yeah.
what I usually consider inchworms to just be little. But
Yeah.
that's chunky.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
how long does it take for them to go from say egg to adult then?
Yeah. We can talk about the whole life cycle. The eggs are laid in the winter time. They're called winter moths because the adults are actually active in the winter months, which is really unusual for a lot of insects. So they're really flying when nothing else is around. The eggs are laid on the bark of their host plants on the trees, and they actually go through a change in color. When they're laid, they're green, like this kind of minty green. They blend in with the lichen on the trees.
Mm.
And then as they develop and get closer to hatch, they turn pink. And then right before they hatch, they're this dark blue color, which is kind of cool. And
Oh, that's really neat.
yeah, and for
Yeah.
my research, I'd collect eggs and we'd keep them in a growth chamber to try and hatch them in the lab. And you could watch this progression of color through the winter. And they do need a certain amount of time at a cold temperature. So below 4 degrees Celsius, I think is what it was. And that will, that period of cold is when it starts to warm is what's going to signal them to hatch.
Wow.
And their hatch is really synchronized with the bud burst of their host plants. So if they hatch before those host plants are starting to bud, they won't have anything to eat. If they hatch too late, they're so tiny that they're not going to really be able to take advantage of the food that's available. So that synchrony is really important to their survival. Just the way that they are so closely adapted to their environment is really interesting. And so these leaves or these plants are just putting out their buds. So it would kind of be like how we are right now. We're recording in the spring. What are, at least I'm in Massachusetts, what our buds are looking like right now. It's a good time for winter moth to be hatching. And these little teeny tiny caterpillars enter these just opening buds, and then they are sheltered in there, and they eat the bud from the inside out and then grow. As they get bigger, the leaves are opened and expanded. Then they'll be munching on the leaves how you would think of a caterpillar. But they will enter those, and it's both flower and leaf buds. So they damage fruit because of that flower bud damage.
Wow.
But they eat it from the inside out, and you'll see little holes. So it's kind of like thinking of the caterpillar in an apple, like the hole coming out. Yeah.
Another bug that loves to eat things from the inside out.
Yes, and they are a very hungry caterpillar.
Does Europe have these big emergencies too, or is it really just here because they're have an advantage in a new space?
Because when we talked about emerald ash borers, it was like, because the ash tree doesn't have any way to like defend itself, the emerald ash borer could wipe through them. Is that what's going on with the moths too?
Yeah, kind of. So in Europe, they do have periods of outbreak, but it's kind of more regular, about every 10 years or so, and their populations are regulated by natural predators. So it's kind of normal in a native range for a lepidopteran pest to have those periods of outbreak. We have examples of that here with there's actually a native geometrid that looks exactly like winter moth. It's very hard to tell them apart. They're even hybridizing in areas where they kind of overlap. And for a long time, people just attributed all of this defoliation to the native moth and didn't know that we actually had winter moth. For a while, that was happening in Massachusetts and British Columbia. So yeah, that moth has kind of regular cyclical outbreaks, whereas winter moth, when it was newly introduced, really didn't have a bust period. It was all boom.
Right.
It is actually a really successful example of biological control, though, because it is not as big of an issue anymore in New England and the Northeast.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So the inchworms there, their caterpillar phase, they balloon, right? Kind of like little spiders.
Yeah. So that's how they get around. When they first hatch, they're on the bark of the tree. So they have to get from the trunk to the buds where they're going to feed. And they do produce silk. So they are able to kind of fly on the breeze on their strands of silk and fly through the air. And they produce silk throughout their whole larval life. So that's how they're moving from plant to plant as caterpillars.
Wow. So they balloon through every stage.
Yeah, it's just a lot easier to travel far when they're tiny. When they get bigger, they really kind of just drop straight down. But when they're tiny, they can fly, hundreds of yards on the wind.
Wow.
Oh, is that typical? I just only ever think of caterpillars making silk right at the very end when they're making their little cocoons. But maybe I'm being influenced by silkworms.
Yeah.
And that's how they do it,
Yeah, I think it's common for this group. So a lot of the interims have that ability, because you'll see if you are walking through the woods and stuff, sometimes you'll get those brown ones on you, and they're just hanging there in the air, kind of spinning around.
And those like bagworms that like cover themselves in little bark chips.
Yeah, those are cool.
Like,
yeah.
Don't pay attention to me. I'm just a little bug chip.
Yeah.
Oh, Kelly, I'll turn myself up. Hold on. Oh, okay. I just didn't want to be too loud. It's my first day in my podcast dungeon, so we're still working out some of those stuff.
Usually you're very loud, Amanda, and I'm surprised that I'm having trouble hearing you.
I'm trying to be respectful to the genius STEM moth ladies in my presence. I have to be quiet and wait my turn.
No. Always talk to us, Amanda. I love your questions. These moths sound crazy. What a fascinating species.
See,
Yeah.
here in Portland, oh, sorry.
Oh,
Here in Portland, the moth I'm most familiar with is the kind that lives in my kitchen.
yeah.
And so I'm there all the time. I feel like they're always around. There's like winter, spring, summer. Don't know her because they're just always in your rice trying to steal your ramen noodles.
Yeah. And so these insects were introduced into the Pacific Northwest as well. I don't know
Oh
necessarily about
no.
Portland, the city, but I do know that they were in Oregon and Washington. But again, they released some biological control agents, which we can talk about.
Yeah, definitely.
But you had asked about development time. So the eggs hatch when those buds are bursting. So here it's usually April or May, or Maine and northern Massachusetts, April or May. And then, as you get farther south, it's earlier and earlier. And then they feed on the leaves for about 6 weeks. So by June, they're pretty much finished feeding. They drop to the ground and they pupate in the soil, the top layer of soil. And they kind of make like a little dirt cocoon with their silk and dirt, and they're buried underground. And then they stay underground for the rest of the summer and fall, and then the adults emerge in October or November. And the adults are active and flying through January.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow,
so they are
so
really
late.
cold hardy.
Do the adults feed?
No, they don't.
They don't. Okay.
Yeah. So the
Hard
males
to be a
emerge.
moth.
Yeah. So the males emerge first, and the females are actually flightless. So they don't have full wings. They have little wing pads. There are a lot of other moths that are like this. The spongy moth is like that. And so the females just emerge from the ground and crawl up the trunk of the nearest tree. Their instinct is to just crawl up. And then they lay eggs on the bark as they go up, and they're emitting pheromones the whole time to draw in all those males that do have wings and can fly around. And the males are able to detect them and signal in, and then they mate on the trunk of the tree as they're climbing up. They lay all their eggs. They lay between 100 and 300-ish eggs.
Oh, so they're
Each
pretty
female.
prolific.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot of eggs.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. They only have wing buds.
Yeah.
I know there are a few species of midge that are like that too, or gnats.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's odd.
Yeah.
It's odd.
Isn't that how fireflies are too? Like the lady stays on the ground and is like, "Hello, it's my light. Come find me." But maybe I'm remembering that wrong.
She has
I don't-
wings though. Little
She
baby
does have
fireflies
wings?
have wings. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I don't have them around here, so I only ever see them in movies and in Owl City music videos. That's the only
Yeah.
time.
You don't have fireflies?
Mm-mm. I think there's technically one that's like out in Nowheresville, and I'm not in Nowheresville, so I don't ever see them. But I
Oh
could be
no,
wrong about that.
Amanda.
Yeah,
Hmm.
sorry.
Yeah,
That's
that's sad.
sad.
Well, right? I've heard that there's like way less fireflies. That like
Yeah.
there used to be a ton. You couldn't go outside without fireflies, and now it's like maybe you'll see some every now and
Yeah.
then. So
Yeah, there was someone gave a talk on that at the mosquito conference last year about fireflies, and I think it was like insecticides.
Hmm.
But there seems to be no correlation between insecticides used for mosquito treatments on fireflies. So we know we're not doing it. I guess.
Yeah. It seems like it's more related to habitat and things like that, and
Yeah.
light pollution and suburbia and all that.
too many kids catching them in jars. They're really
Yeah.
devastating
Yeah.
population.
An epidemic of children in jars.
Help me.
Oh man. Well, I'd like to hear more about maybe the biocontrol that's used.
Yeah, sure. So the biological control agent that we've used here in the Northeast, and it's been used in Canada as well, is a tachinid fly. It's Cyzinus albicans. And the adults are out at the same time as the caterpillars, and the adult flies will lay their eggs on the leaves near where a caterpillar is feeding. And the caterpillar comes and munches along the leaf and eats the egg, swallows it, there's something in the salivary glands that signals that fly egg to hatch as it
Oh, I
travels to the
knew it.
stomach.
Oh no.
And
Morgan,
then
that
yeah, that fly larva eats the caterpillar from the inside out, but it doesn't want to damage it too much because it needs to complete its life cycle before the caterpillar,
croaks.
succumbs to its invasion. So they actually pupate inside of the winter moth pupa. And then those adults will stay underground all winter long and then come out in the spring. And it's incredibly host specific. They only will infect winter moth. They even have found that they won't infect the closely related Bruce spanworm that you can't tell the difference between the two. Now, I don't know what will happen with these hybridized populations, but it is incredibly host specific. Yeah. And they released, with a biological control release, you have to release so many adults all at once because you're just hoping that some of them will take hold. It takes really kind of over releasing these biological control agents to get them established. But they did become established here in Massachusetts, in Maine. They did this in Rhode Island, Connecticut, and it had previously been done in Canada and the Pacific Northwest. And they had really successful control.
Oh, that's
so within
great.
a few years, winter moth really it's still there, and depends on the year how many you'll see, but it really hasn't been very much of an issue. And in Maine, where I did my research, there's another caterpillar that kind of emerged around the same time and has been a much bigger problem. So I think it's been a little overshadowed by that guy. But
it's a never-ending wave of invasive species that we're really just mitigating, right? We can't get rid of them permanently. Right. There never seems to be a final, like a real solution to anything.
Yeah.
Which we have the spotted lanternfly, which you guys have in Massachusetts too, right? Or not?
There has been some populations found, but we're really keeping an eye on it. I think they are
coming.
Hoping
They're
that
coming.
They're coming.
Good luck.
Yeah.
They're a mess here in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Come June.
Kelly's
July.
preparing her home every weekend now. She's boarding up the windows so the spotted lanternfly can come in.
Yeah.
They do fly into my apartment we leave our balcony door open in the nice weather, and they fly in, but then my cats have like a field day.
Yeah.
So this is a question that neither of you might know the answer to, but it's just like a general biology question. Can you make a hybrid animal between two different species? How much does it take to make that hybrid animal its own species? I assume it has to be able to breed, which I know like the mule can't. But are coy wolves out there, the coyote wolf, are they breeding? I don't know. I don't know how much it takes to make a hybrid animal that's technically now a new animal. Derek says I've opened a can of worms.
This is a can of worms. It kind of depends. People have a lot of differing opinions about what a species actually is. And a lot of times, it's whether you can successfully produce offspring is kind of like the base.
That's base one. You gotta get
but
to
we might still just consider them a hybrid species, even if they can create their own offspring or interbreed with other closely. I think it is the ultimate.
I think it's in Florida.
Yeah.
I think it's in Florida. There's like snakes that are starting to like hybridize because people are like, I don't want this Burmese python anymore.
Yeah.
And then it gets out and it's like, oh, hello, other python. Maybe Florida's an outlier and should not be counted.
Yes.
Right. I have read about that. Yeah. Terrifying.
Florida's a mess for a lot of reasons that we're probably not going to cover on this podcast.
Probably time to just saw it off and let it float into the
ocean. Sorry, Florida. We love you. Amanda out here alienating a whole state of listeners.
Well, it's the problem when you get the very young who just want to party and the very old who want those young partiers to go away, and it just creates a negative atmosphere from which I don't know the state will ever recover.
Well, it was a good question, Amanda.
I didn't know I had accidentally stumbled upon discourse, as is often my way.
So your your dissertation or your master's thesis was on the winter moth. Now, I don't think we talk too much about sort of the process of getting these degrees. How many journal articles do you think you read to
Oh
complete that
gosh,
master's?
I don't even know. I don't even think I could guess a number. It's a
Is
lot.
now a
It's a
good
lot of
time
reading.
to name drop that you're on the Wikipedia article
Oh,
for
speaking of articles, yeah.
speaking of articles, you're in the Wikipedia. You're
Oh, I
cited on
am?
the Wikipedia for the
Oh,
winter
I
moth.
didn't even
Yeah.
know that. That's exciting.
You've made
You,
it
you are
now,
the ultimate
baby.
expert now.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of like it was really lucky timing, I guess, because when I started grad school in 2012 and went to Maine to work under my advisor who works on ants. Ants are my favorite of the insects.
Oh.
So that was my plan. But then she came to me and it was within the first 2 months of me starting grad school. And she was like, there's this new invasive in the coast. I think it could be really exciting. It'd be, you'd have this whole area to do research in that has never been done before instead of, being limited to what I work on with these ants. Do you want to switch? And so I said yes. And it was great. It was kind of lucky timing.
Yeah, that's awesome timing. That's like a gift, a total gift from the universe to
Yeah.
from the
be
bug
handed.
queen in the sky.
Yes. Do you? I'm certain you have no regrets, right? You don't wish you worked with ants because this
No,
moth
I
sounds
mean,
pretty awesome.
yeah, when you're in grad school, your advisor is your boss. So I did get to work on the ants and work in her lab. They were also an invasive species from Europe, the European fire ant. So I
Oh,
got to get stung plenty of times.
how
Kelly,
did that
still
feel?
sting free, still sting free.
Yes, I've never been stung by anything.
Oh, really? Not even
Nothing.
a yellow jacket or
No,
wow.
nothing. I've only been bitten by plenty of mosquitoes because we
Yes.
have an Aedes albopictus colony in the lab,
Yep.
and I'm tasty apparently.
Yeah.
And then like biting flies when I'm out hiking, and that's it.
Yeah.
Nothing
Wow.
else.
Nothing
That's pretty
stinky.
amazing.
Yeah. It's gonna
We're gonna
happen.
make
I'm
her-
not gonna know how to react. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna make her a Schmidt scale.
Yeah.
When she
But
finally
for
does.
someone who works outside, that's pretty incredible.
I think
You
they
give
know
off
that
a
I'm on their side.
yeah. You give off a don't bother me energy, I guess.
As you know, bees can sense royalty. I don't know if either one of you has seen Jupiter Ascending, but there is a truly wild scene in which bee alien Sean Bean says that bees can sense royalty, and then the bees sense that Mila Kunis is a space queen, and they must be different. That movie is wild. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend it as a bad movie night viewing.
Yeah, I'll have to do that. I haven't seen it.
It is my theory that the Wachowskis were like, here's all the money you need to make a movie, and they're like, sweet, we'll work on that script later, and then they had to turn in the script like the next day, and they're like, oh no, just pull out your high school fan fiction, that'll do, and so like then they just made a movie of their own OCs from their own fan fiction.
The story I heard was that it was supposed to be like 9 movies, and they had to condense it into like 1.
Oh,
It
wow.
has a real
9
like they were
movies.
trying to be.
Who was gonna watch that? No one.
That's
No
a
one.
lot of movies.
It's not a Star Wars. Get out of here.
Watching it, I think it was meant to be a graphic novel because it has a lot of graphic novel tropes in it that I'm like, oh, okay, all right, Like I'd say it was trying to be Saga. If anyone's read Saga, I think it was trying to do that. So 9 movies makes a lot more sense actually.
Mm.
But
Well,
he's a werewolf from space who has wings. Okay, like tell me that's not a character I wrote when I was 13. Okay.
I forgot how weird that movie was.
It's so
Yeah.
bad.
I'd say it is. It's worth it for a bad movie night. Give
I'll
it
have to add it to the list.
Also,
Put it
Eddie
on the
Redmayne
list.
is just like chewing the scenery. He does this thing where he like screams and then he whispers and then he screams again and then he whispers. And like to his credit, it makes his character seem unhinged, which is what he was going for.
Oh, well, yeah. Amanda.
I'm sorry, I've
Derail
derailed
the
us.
podcast.
That's what I do.
Amanda, the
That's what
movie
I do.
derailer. Well, what do you think?
Very good
Is I guess the winter moth is the villain, right? If we had to pick.
Yeah, I think so, but I
I'm
think
the
it
villain
has
around here.
been vanquished by maybe the hero is the fly. I don't know.
Yeah. That would work.
Yeah.
Well,
They also have, I know you've talked about ichneummonid wasps. They do have an
Mhm.
ichneummonid parasitoid too, but
Oh,
we haven't
cool.
released that in the US. It's not host specific enough.
Oh,
Well, we
I
talked a
think-
little
Made
bit.
enough mistakes.
Right.
know.
We talked a little bit in Emerald Ash Boar, where it was like the dangerous game of releasing an
Mhm.
animal that you think will destroy another animal, and then
Yeah.
them being like, that animal's too hard to catch. I'm going to eat this other thing that you didn't want me to eat, you know?
Yeah. Well, the
And then
best
pretty
example
soon-
is the cane toad.
Right,
which
that's
they
what we
released
cited
in-
too.
Yeah.
I think that was the most famous because there's like a whole Simpsons episode about it.
Oh, okay. And there's a pretty entertaining documentary too.
Oh, is there? I'll
It's
watch
really
that.
good. I recommend that.
I'll have to.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
That documentary filmmaker has done some other projects, which I highly recommend. He did
Oh.
Ferrets, The Pursuit of Excellence, which is about breeding and showing ferrets on a competitive
think
level.
I've
Oh
seen
my
that one.
gosh.
You
need
probably
to-
have because I've made you watch it.
I think
Because
Derek
it's so
made me
good.
watch that one. And it's supposed to be about ferrets, but really it's about ferret people.
Yeah, I love
Oh.
that. Like
Did you-
best in show kind of, but
Yeah.
Yeah, but with real people, like
real people.
ferret people are their own kind of people. You know, there's some pets that just kind of reveal who you are as a person.
Yes.
If you're a snake lady, if you're a
Yep.
ferret guy, if you're a cat lady being the obvious one, but cats are kind of ubiquitous at this point. But if you've got a unique pet, it says something about you.
Yes, that's very true. My music teacher was she had a ferret and it really tracked.
She's-
High music teacher energy on a ferret. So I'm interested in, because you and Kelly are on the opposite ends of the mosquito spectrum. You're trying to get rid of them. She's seeing what they're up to while they're alive.
Yeah.
She's growing them. You're killing them. You're on opposite ends.
Yeah.
So I am interested in, like, because on the mosquito episode, we talk about how Kelly gets asked all the time, how do you get rid of all mosquitoes on Earth always?
Yep.
So, like,
It just makes me angry, and I go,
It
I don't know.
Me too. Me too.
so, like, how do you control them without accidentally just wiping out whole populations?
Yeah.
Like, that feels like a delicate dance.
Yeah. Well, I don't do as much of the controlling personally. Our office does, but I'm the entomologist, so I do all of the surveillance, identification. We test them for diseases. So we're really kind of, and we are a state agency too, so we have a limited kind of purview and what we're able to do. And we're really focusing on probably about a dozen or fewer species of mosquitoes to control. Most of them we don't care about because they feed on only worms. They feed on only frogs. We don't need to worry about those species that aren't going to vector diseases to us or be a huge nuisance problem. And it also is just impossible to get rid of them all. They're hard to, they're really wily creatures. They're hard to control. And there are certain species that are especially hard to control. So I would think it would be impossible to wipe them all out, but we also don't need to wipe them all out. We're really only worried about a few species.
This time of year, I think often of, because we're at that time where, like, you're sitting in your car and then you see like 3 mosquitoes on your window, like desperately trying to get into you. And I think of that scene in Jumanji where they're like piercing through the suede top.
Yeah.
to the car. I feel like that's where the mosquitoes are right now, for at least coming in as the warmer weather comes in. They've started to get ravenous, and that's what I always think about. Oh, they're trying to get in me.
Yeah.
Trying to suck my blood.
Oh, they gotta lay their eggs. These
Yeah.
mamas have a plan.
Mama
Yeah.
gotta eat.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to survive. Yeah.
How do you go about trapping when you're doing mosquito trapping?
Yeah. Well, right now we're really focusing on larval populations in wetlands. So I'm out every day dipping for mosquito larvae and trying to figure out what species are present, and kind of assessing the population density and everything. And all of these larvae that are in wetlands right now will become our early spring species. So these are like the black-legged Aedes, the Canadensis, a lot of those kind of wooded pool species that come out early in the spring. And it's kind of interesting. We're finding, I would say, lower than average numbers of larvae in the wetlands this year. And,
Really?
I've only been to so many, so I can't say that this is like a for sure lower numbers, but I do kind of wonder if it has anything to do with the huge drought we had last year, if that could have affected these particular species whose eggs were laid, June, July last year, and then have been waiting until now to hatch. So I do kind of wonder if that we'll still see an effect this summer from that. There are a lot of species that we know we will see that effect because there wasn't enough water in the environment for them to even lay eggs last year, but we'll see. And so collecting larval mosquitoes is very high tech. We just have a cup on the end of a stick and scoop them up and then bring them back. To collect adults, we use a few different traps. We use the CDC trap baited with carbon dioxide, and that's collecting adult mosquitoes that are looking for a blood meal. So they find us because of the CO2 that we're putting out. So we bait it with that CO2 and let the mosquitoes fill up. We had a record number of mosquitoes in one CDC trap in one night in 2021 after flooding. It was all floodplain mosquito species. We had 23,000 individuals in one trap in one night. Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, they stuffed themselves in there. Yeah, pretty amazing.
Those poor ladies, they're just hungry.
Yes. And we also will use gravid traps. So that's looking for female mosquitoes that are ready to lay their eggs. We use those a lot to look for West Nile virus because they attract the primary vector of West Nile, and they also have been guaranteed for the most part to have taken a blood meal. So the chances of finding the virus will be a little bit higher. We use resting boxes, which are looking for Culicida melanura, which is the primary vector of Eastern equine encephalitis. We use ovitraps to try and track Aedes albopictus.
Mm-hmm.
We use, all different kinds of traps to collect adults.
Do you use chickens at all?
We don't do sentinel chickens, no.
No. Can you
What
explain
what is a sentinel
to Amanda?
Sure,
what a sentinel
I know it is kind of a cruel and funny way of tracking
that sounds
diseases.
It sounds like a robot chicken that you send out.
It's used a lot more in the South. Like Louisiana still uses sentinel chickens. I think Florida does. So basically they'll have chickens placed out in the environment in different areas, and they'll keep monitoring those chickens, the blood of those chickens, to see when West Nile virus becomes present. So it kind of gives you a clue as to when West Nile is building in the bird population and when it will be able to spill over into the human population.
I wish the listeners could see Amanda's face during all this.
Like shock, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we just leave the chickens out there till they get a disease.
Till they get sick." Well,
great. Thanks, chicken.
The worst part about being a sentinel chicken is really the best place for a mosquito to bite you is right around your eye.
Yeah.
Because there's so many feathers, so it's pretty rough life.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I don't think we use those in New Jersey. I don't know a lot about management, but I don't think we do.
I don't think so.
Kinder to the chicken. New Jersey.
Yeah, and they don't have hands to wipe the mosquitoes away from their eyes, so they're just
stuck. They're just the tail that you see a cow wicked that tail. Poor chickens are at the mercy. Oh, poor little chicken.
Yeah.
Are you So you said you've noticed much fewer amount of larvae. What kind of effect do you think that'll have on the aquatic ecosystems up there?
Yeah, they also are kind of starting to dry up because we've had a drier spring too. So I think that a lot of the pools are going to disappear early anyway. But I haven't noticed a difference in any of the other aquatic insects that are out there. And that's my favorite part of doing the larval surveillance in the spring, is seeing all the different aquatic insects. I also love mayflies. I have a mayfly tattoo on my arm.
Oh, that's awesome looking.
Yeah,
very cool.
and then the caddis flies and the diticid larvae, and I'm still seeing tons of those. And as long as their wetland environment stays wet enough for them to complete their life cycle, then they should all be fine. Um, and yeah, mosquitoes can provide food for some of those predatory insects, but I think that there's probably enough else out there. I'm seeing plenty of midge larvae,
Oh, okay, yeah.
lots of little copepods, and yeah, I'm still seeing a lot of other things,
Oh,
just
that's good.
not, and it could just be the wetlands that I've been assigned to this spring, but I'm not seeing those huge numbers that I'm used to seeing when dipping. And we've also had kind of a weird winter. We didn't really have any snow, and it never really got that cold except for one weekend. So I think
Yeah,
that
here
the
too.
wetlands, yeah, they're kind of just a little bit different than they normally would look.
Can you tell us a little bit? So when I met you at the conference, you were discussing this mosquito species that hangs out in the roots of cattails.
Yeah.
So what is that little guy or the little ladies? How do they work?
Yeah, they are really cool. They are commonly called the cattail mosquito. The scientific name is Coquiletidia perturbans, which I always love mosquito scientific names because it's always like nuisance, excrusions, tormentor,
Yeah.
perturbans.
Oh,
It's always,
tormentor's a good one.
yeah, yeah. My favorite doesn't have to do with how much they bother us. It's Gross Becky, just because I think it's kind of funny. Was it named after a lady named Becky who was gross?
Sorry,
I don't know.
Becky.
Becky.
Yeah.
I feel like the
But-
secret scientist world is that they're
Yeah.
hiding insults to each other in the names. Like,
They're like, oh, I'm gonna get.
I'm
that
gonna get you,
Becky.
gross Becky. Who do you think you are, gross Becky?
Yeah.
Some
Yeah,
woman you
but-
were stuck working with in the lab who was
Yeah.
horrible.
yeah, it
Always
probably is.
stealing everybody's lunch. You're like, Becky.
Yeah, but they are called the cattail mosquito because they're closely tied with cattail wetlands. They use other plants as well, but especially where I live, we have a ton of catland or cattail swamps. So they really are kind of tied to those habitats. And they, as larvae, have a modified siphon that will cut into the roots of these cattails and then breathe through the stem of the cattail rather than going to the surface to breathe like other mosquito larvae. They also look really different as larvae. They're really cool to look at. They're like a whitish or greenish color. They move differently than the other mosquito larvae do. They have like a really big looking thorax area. Yeah, they're really, really cool looking.
Oh wow! I love that they make their own snorkel out of
Yes.
the cattail.
Yeah.
That's so
And
smart.
it makes them hard to find and hard to control, because if you want to control them in the larval stage, how are you going to get at them if they're attached to this plant and kind of protected in that way? And they're not really leaving it to feed that much. They're filter feeders. They can sit there and just filter feed while they're protected by this plant. So we actually use this modified dipper that's a sieve attached to a long pole, and you scrape the underside of the roots to dislodge them, and then you're able to find them in the sieve there, and let a little water through and you'll see them swimming. But they spend most of the year in the cattail swamp as larvae. So right now they're in about their third or fourth instar. They've been overwintering as larvae since the eggs were laid last, probably July or August.
Right.
And then they'll emerge in June. The adults peak right around here. They peak right around the 4th of July, and they're a huge human biter. They're a bridge vector species, and they're also a nuisance species. They also are pretty much tied to activity at dusk. They're truly my favorite word, crepuscular species. So if you're trying to sit after work on your porch while the sun is setting and enjoy your backyard, you're going to be swarmed by them if they're nearby.
If you're sitting on a lawn chair waiting for the fireworks to start, you're doomed. They're coming for you. It's crazy to me how long they last before they're adults again. Like that's
yeah. So they're a
That's a long
species that
cycle.
will have really been affected by the drought last year. So, it's likely we'll have a lot lower numbers this year, but we'll see.
But again, not totally wiped out. You just can't do it.
Yeah. Yep.
There'll always be a puddle somewhere. They're
Oh,
gonna find it.
I think Derek is asking if you can catch them as adults.
Yeah. We catch them in really high numbers in our CDC traps. So
Oh, okay.
I think our record for perturbans was 16,000 in a trap in one night.
Wow. Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That is. I used to do mosquito control, kind of. Mostly I was just trapping 80s Elopictus, I think was what we mostly got. And I think we used those traps.
Yeah.
And they were pretty chock full of
Yeah.
Albopictus.
Yeah.
It's
So all
amazing how
three of
good they
you have
work.
done mosquito trapping. I'm the only one who hasn't ever trapped a mosquito.
You'll have to give it a try. Put a trap in your backyard.
All right, I'm ready. It's certainly that time of year where, like, oh, I left my hat outside. Now it's full of mosquito larvae. Oh no! They're just in there doing their little wiggle dance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you
And
have children,
mosquito-
Amanda. If they
Yeah.
leave buckets of water out, then...
Oh, when they do. I believe there's a deflated ball in my backyard right now that is just waiting for a mosquito larva. And like looking at mosquito larvae is one of those things where like it both grosses me out and fascinates me. And so I like can't stop looking at them when they're like wee 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 their way through the water, and I'm like, oh, that's nasty. I can't
Yeah.
stop watching.
I love their little wiggle.
I do too.
It's kind of cute. They're like,
It just
and
doesn't seem
different
like a
species
very
wiggle differently. So
Yeah, they do.
clearly.
It's true.
It just doesn't seem like a very efficient way to get around. It
Yeah.
seems very inefficient. You know?
That's why they live in standing water. They don't have to work too hard. They just kind of hang out.
it's a casual wiggle.
Yeah.
A casual wiggle.
But I mean, I'm like you. I love mosquitoes, even though they're, a threat to our livelihoods. I still think that they're really cool, and I love them, and I'm not usually bothered by them unless we have virus in the environment.
Yeah, but I think we're like moving towards potential sort of CRISPR and genetic fixes.
Yeah.
For this, so it's pretty interesting. If we just make their bodies inhospitable to the virus.
Yeah,
then
that research is really cool.
It's very
and it is really exciting. I do feel like we will have an effective way to prevent malaria in our lifetimes, which is pretty incredible.
Wow, that is incredible. We talked a little bit on the mosquito episode that punk seventh graders asked Kelly, like, how many people die of malaria?
Laughed at that.
So you can theoretically lower that number. Yeah, they always find a way.
I'm still mad at that child. How many years later? It's so rude.
I hope he listens to it and recognizes himself. He's like, oh no,
yeah,
what a punk seventh grader I was.
I've traumatized that poor scientist.
Yeah.
Oh no. It's like the opposite of the doctor we talked about with you, Kelly, with your premature birth doctor when you were the baby and he kept a picture of you. You're going to keep a picture of that kid. With the opposite energy of like, this kid.
The anger. Yeah.
Anger.
I think again.
Yeah, I'm sure you did cut that part, Derek, but we don't need to tell Kelly's whole life story on the podcast.
No, we're just here to hear about your dad. That's
Dadcast is always good content. My dad's a lunatic, but we love him.
Yeah, if you Kaitlyn, if you listen to other episodes, you'll learn a whole lot about Amanda and Derek's father. And
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I plan to. I've been enjoying them so far.
Eventually you'll find one that just infuriates you. So
no. Impossible.
We appreciate that you listen. Speaking of control, you guys use a helicopter, is that right? There's like a helicopter involved?
Yeah, we do. For our larvicides, we apply with a helicopter. So we'll be doing that for our spring wetlands coming up. And in the spring, we use BTI. I don't know if you've talked about BTI before,
No.
but it's a bacterial insecticide that kills, it's very specific. It only kills mosquito and black fly larvae. And it's Bacillus thuringiensis is the bacteria name, and then there are all these subspecies that are specific to different types of insects. So there's a BT that you can use that's only for beetles, a BT that you can use that's only for Lepidopteran. We used a BTI or BTK actually to control winter moth in some experiments in blueberry fields when I was in grad school. But it's a bacteria that the insect has to consume, and it's like very spiky. So it kind of cuts their stomach lining and makes them very sick, and they die before they can pupate and become an adult. So we're trying to control them in the larval stage.
A rough way to do things.
It is. We control them in the larval stage before they come out.
Call it control, but like the reality is it's like kind of a brutal business.
Yes, it is.
I'm controlling the population.
I'm torturing them until they die.
And I love the phrase "applied with a helicopter." That just is like, wow, I applied it with a helicopter.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of issues actually with people understanding what we're doing, because everyone just says the word spray. And to me, that kind of signifies a liquid product. And we're using a granule that enters the water, and it's activated by becoming wet. So if you drop it just in the woods on the forest floor, it will be inert. Nothing will happen. So we kind of try and get people to use different language, but it's hard because you think of mosquito control and you think of spraying, and then you think of the trucks and DDT and all that, all that history there. So it is kind of hard to get people to understand what we're dropping from the helicopters. And they have to fly low to accurately apply it to the wetland and not outside of the wetland. And we have a pretty populated area where we work. So people are, out in their backyards, like, what are you doing? And it can be kind of scary, but
not minding their own business.
Yeah.
I think I've seen it from biplane before, where it's like meow, and the biplane goes by, and it's like this pinky purpley dust that they just put on everything.
Yeah, they'll use planes too. We just use helicopters because that's what's been available to us. We contracted out, but
Have you been on the helicopter?
At one time, I got to ride in the helicopter. It was awesome.
It sounds terrifying to me. I don't know why a helicopter was like. It sounds really cool, but like the worm larva, I kind of both hate it and want to continue to see it.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's how I'd feel on the helicopter too. I'd be like, this is scary but also fun, but mostly scary but also fun.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I think if you're afraid of heights at all, it wouldn't be for you because it's like a very wide glass front, so you feel, and if they're like, I think the guy flying was trying to scare me a little. He was like diving, and I was like, wee! But
at 5'2", I'm never above like 6 foot ever. I have to use a kitchen stool to reach the regular cupboards in my kitchen. So.
Yeah, we keep Amanda low to the ground.
Where you're comfortable.
I live in the cellar. I'm low to the ground. I'm basically just an earwig now. That's just how it is.
Are there any other like interesting myths you'd like to address? Like
I especially this time of year, we get a lot of people complaining about mosquitoes before they've really emerged. So there are a lot of flying flies that people will confuse for mosquitoes. A lot of them don't bite. Some of them do, but they don't live very long. So we're not really, and don't carry diseases. So we're not too worried about them. But the biggest one is people, I don't know where this came from, but people think that crane flies are either a mosquito eater or the daddy mosquito, the male mosquito. And I don't know where that myth came from, but I get that all the time.
That one
it is our intention to do a daddy long legs episode, and we'll cover some of the crane fly stuff where it's like it just is roughly shaped like a mosquito. It's not related to them in any significant way.
They're related, but they're not.
Yeah.
They're not.
Well,
mosquitoes.
Okay, their behavior is not coming for you.
Yes.
He's not coming through the suede top of the convertible trying to get you with his multi-pronged little mouth parts there.
Yeah. We just we recorded like a Bug Basics taxonomy episode, which hasn't come out yet. But Amanda, if mosquitoes are Culicidae, Then our buddies, the crane flies, are Tulipidae. So different.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I'm imagining the step ladder of specificness and like
Imagine
where
the
it
tree.
diverges.
Yeah. And their flies are divided into two like bigger categories, Nematocera and Brachycera. And the Nematocera I think of as like very dainty, and those are mosquitoes, crane flies. And then the Brachycera are like more robust, like the house flies.
Chunks.
The
They're little
tachinid that
Flying
parasitizes
chunky
winter
boys.
moth. Yeah.
Okay.
You got it, Amanda. It's in
think
there.
So. I
Started
think
away.
it's in there. I know I said this, which I don't know in what order these episodes will release. So it could be I'm talking about next week's episode for all I know. But it just feels like even in the scientific community, there's like disagreements about where the split should happen.
Oh yeah.
So I as a layperson, I'm like, but what about how is the elephant related to the walrus? I don't understand. They're like, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
There's a good one for mosquitoes, Aedes versus Operophtera. Some people split them, some people don't. It's a whole thing.
Depending on what paper I'm reading, it's either Operophtera, Triceriatus, or it's Aedes.
Yep.
We've had some good jargon this episode.
Yeah.
coming in hot with all this Latin, and I'm like, okay, sure.
How many? All right, so I guess we'll do the legs portion.
Yeah.
How many? We'll do it for both. How many legs would you give the winter moth out of 6? And how many legs would you give that sweet cattail mosquito?
I think this is hard because I love all insects, so I want to give them all 6 legs.
It's a bug queen. She doesn't want to rake them.
The winter moth as a caterpillar has 0. Well, it still has 6 legs, pro legs.
Right.
But yeah, since it was such a huge problem, but is now somewhat mitigated, I will give it a 3.
Oh, fair.
Yeah.
That's a very fair number.
Yeah. And then the cattail mosquito, I think just because I love them, but I think because they are implicated in disease in my area, I will probably soon be counting thousands and thousands of them. And we'll see them when I close my eyes at night. I'll give them a 1.
Yeah, no good.
I think a 1 is the harshest we've had.
I think it is the harshest we've had. 1 little leg. I mean,
I'm very lenient with the legs because I love everything.
Yeah.
So I can be a little. Although Amanda's been pretty.
I am. I've been so generous lately. At the same time, I'm just like, the world is beautiful and we need all creatures to live.
Yeah,
because we
beautiful world. But so I've been like 6, 5, 4 legs.
8. Amanda goes above sometimes.
8 legs. It's a spider now.
Now they're arachnids. Yeah. I think I would give the winter moth. I'm going to go with a 3. I agree on your 3. And then the mosquito, I don't know. It's won me over with that cattail straw. I'm giving them a 4.
Cool. Yeah.
They're very cool. And you said they're like greenish and wiggle different.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Points. It gets points. Amanda?
Yeah. Okay. I give points for multicolored egg. Cool. Colors. I'm always into color shifting. It's a mood ring egg sounds awesome to me. So that's points. And I feel like I gotta award points for it gets eaten from the inside. I just have empathy for that. Maybe not empathy. Maybe just sympathy.
You've been there before.
I've been pregnant twice, so maybe empathy. But at the same time, horribly invasive, eating all my stuff. I think I'm gonna give them winter moth, but stays alive when no one else is there. That's pretty. Yeah, I gotta go 3. I gotta agree with you guys because I think it's cool that it's like no one's out there. Now's my time to shine. So that's pretty. Yeah, I'll go 3. With the mosquito, disease does fall under my rubric of how does it affect me, which is what I often. The biggest thing is like, does it benefit me? Does it not benefit me?
It's very Amanda centric.
Yes, I gotta keep it. I gotta keep the humans represented on this podcast. Otherwise, we're gonna be too sympathetic to the bug. I'll give them 3. It's not their fault that they're a vector of disease. It's not like they went out there and were like, now's my time to really stick it to the man. No.
That's very
I'll go
kind
double
of you,
3s.
Amanda, recognizing that they're not like choosing to be vectors.
No.
They're not bad guys. They're just mosquitoes. Just
Yeah,
bugs.
they're not the panda out there just straight up switching. It's it's like meal plan because they're crazy. That was part of
If
the.
anything, we can be mad at the diseases, not at the organisms that carry them.
Yeah.
I assure you, I can be mad at organisms that carry diseases. After the last couple years I've had, I promise you, I will be mad at them. Probably too political for the cast. Sorry.
Oh, very Amanda.
Okay, go to the edge over here. Oh yeah, BT is BT the one that makes like the eagle sick, or is that something else?
No, that's DDT.
DDT.
Which we don't use that anymore. We haven't for a long time. Yeah.
Because it like was making their eggshells soft, and then
Yes.
you couldn't get any little baby birds.
Yep.
BT is the bacteria. Okay.
Yeah. And for mosquitoes, it's BTI, and then for other organisms, there's another letter that goes at the end for the subspecies.
It sounds like we have very similar environments, like climate-wise, because we have bald eagles and cattails, and you have bald eagles and cattails.
Yeah.
That's how it works, yo. That's what
I
it
think
works.
we are pretty similar. I think we have colder winters, maybe more snow than Portland, but
Oh yeah, that's
we
true.
are pretty similar. Yeah.
Yeah. The true indicator is bald
Yes.
eagles and
That's-
cattails.
Yeah.
Yes. You look up the Wikipedia article and you'll find me cited at how to tell what a climate is.
Yeah.
That's
If places
all
are the
the
same.
These places are the same. Yeah, correct. That's how you tell.
Amanda's my favorite kind of expert.
Which is not an expert at all. I just think it's interesting. Okay.
Well, we
Do
don't
you guys
wanna...
have salmon? We have a lot of salmon. Do you guys have salmon?
We do have salmon, but
There you go. Basically the same place.
I don't know how much. Basically the same place.
We don't have lobsters though. Oh wait, no, we
Oh.
do have lobsters because there's that 20-pound lobster on the coast. Derek knows what I'm talking about. No, yeah.
Derek's shaking
No?
his head.
Oh, well,
Crabs.
there is a
Crabs
tiny
are not
little...
lobsters.
No, there's a lobster at that zoo you won't go to.
Oh, it's in captivity.
Yes,
that doesn't count.
I'm sure that it doesn't, but like, there's this tiny little aquarium that Derek won't go to because he doesn't support like non-A+ rated creature holders.
Mm.
But basically all it is just like this little pool with seals in it that you can throw squid at.
Oh.
You know the kind of place.
Oh boy.
I mean, yeah, it's probably not great, but the seals seem pretty fat and happy about it. So but they have like on display the former body of a lobster that weighed like, I think it was like 21 pounds.
Wow.
And someone stole it to try and set it back free into the ocean and killed it in like its rescue
my
attempt.
God.
And it was like, you've done nothing but cause chaos here.
Yeah.
So they just keep his shell on display now.
Oh.
Wow. That's kind
Yeah.
of sad. As a warning to all potential.
Well, is it
Lobster
lobsters?
freedom fighters.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's lobsters that like don't die. They only ever get too big for their shell if they're left on their own devices.
I don't know about
I think
that.
they eventually die, but they can get really old.
Yeah.
I feel like they get so old that the molting process like becomes inefficient and they end up dying because they can't molt properly. But maybe I'm just crazy and I'm
That
making
makes
up.
sense. I feel like I've seen a lobster at an aquarium that was like in its 30s.
They get, yeah, they get
Wow.
crazy big. I'm gonna
That
look
was
this
an
up
old
later.
lobster.
I'll text you, Kelly, if it's
Yeah.
true or if I'm
Let me know.
a loon.
Amanda does authoritatively say lots of things, and we're not sure.
If you say it with confidence, everyone will believe you. It's true.
True.
That's how I get through my imposter syndrome. Confident speaking. This is
And if you say it on a podcast, it is true.
that's
Yeah.
I don't make the
That's how it
rules. If it's on a I heard it on a podcast. How many pieces of news do you hear my dad specifically say, I heard this on the other day. My dad is so susceptible to those things. Oh, if I heard it in a video, it must be true. It must be true. The other day, I heard this source.
We don't want to hold you too long, Kaitlyn.
Yeah.
Thank you for being an awesome guest. We hope you
Thanks
had a
for
good
having
time.
me.
Where can folks find you? Do you have social media or anything?
Yeah, I actually have an insect Instagram that I sporadically use, but in the summer usually I post a little more. It is entomology. I can type it out for you so you know how to spell it.
Yeah, send it to us. We'll put it in the show notes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll put the podcast on too when it comes out on my
That'd be great.
Instagram too. Yeah.
Yeah, we'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
It was so nice meeting you at the conference.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you too. Thanks for reading my poster and
I thought it was very cool. Yeah. Thanks for coming to my talk. I appreciate it.
It was also very cool.
Thanks.
Just women supporting women out here in the STEM world.
In a very male-dominated field. So
yeah, that is true.
Ironic then that mosquito is, I guess the mosquitoes are the lady bitey, or the bitey ones are the ladies. So you got mosquito. I guess that makes sense. Not a lot of dudes out here representing in the bug world. We've found so far that it seems to be the interesting behaviors seem to be in the females of the species.
That's why I love entomology so much, to be honest. The males don't really matter that much.
Of course.
Yeah, you only need a couple males. They're not that important. It's ladies who are doing all the work.
Mm-hmm.
So we are a pollinator positive podcast, and we're also a ladybug
positive podcast. We need another alliteration to make that more snappy.
Yeah.
We're ladybug lovers.
I don't know about that one.
You don't love the bug? You don't love the bug?
I love all the bugs, and that's my problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like there was one you gave a low rank. Maybe it was Emerald Ash Borer that you gave a low rank to. I think that was the two legs.
I think so. Yeah.
Real villain energy on that Emerald Ash Borer.
Well, do you want to outro us, Amanda?
Yeah. If you want to cut. Let me hold on. I gotta think of some way to tie it in.
I mean, all of the stuff is also said in the credits music, so.
I know, yeah, but still, you gotta do the like and subscribe energy that the YouTubers have. You gotta smash that like button. Smash, ring that bell. That's what they all say. My son is watching a lot of Minecraft YouTube right now, and they all say that. They're always like, ring that bell. And like always halfway through the video, they're like, what's this I found inside this chest? A subscribe button. Whoa! And I'm like, stop doing this. Anyway, thank you for joining us so much, and we love you. Bye. That's it. Bugs Need Heroes is created by Derek Conrad and Kelly Zimmerman. Hosted by Amanda Niday and Kelly Zimmerman. Bugs Need Heroes is produced and edited by Derek Conrad. Our music is Ladybug Castle by Roll Music. All character art by Amanda Niday. Got a bug question? Email us at bugsneedheroes@gmail.com. Check us out on bugsneedheroes.com for the visual companion to our episodes with the artwork of the bug-related heroes. We also have an Instagram, Twitter, and subreddit under the Bugs Need Heroes name. Thanks for coming by. I'm trying to think of some way to like get a crop dust in there.